James Williams, Director of Programs. Thanks to Michael Becker for curating a great couple of previous sessions. And now is the final session of the event, really putting an end in a great way and drawing a line under today's topic of direct carrier billing. Because at the end of the day, we've talked about the issues, starting off with Guillermo Escofet, providing a great analyst presentation, letting us know what's going on with DCB all around the world at the start of the day. And this session is due and indeed coming right now, moderated by Ross Flynn. Ross, welcome to the show.
Hey James, how's it going? How are you doing?
Good, great. Would you like to introduce yourself to the MEF community?
Of course, yeah. My name's Ross Flynn. I'm an advisor at MEF, so I work closely with James, and I'm very much involved with the DCB working group that we have here. We have a really, really great working group. It's all about promoting growth, basically helping the ecosystem, and that's kind of what this call is all about. We have a really robust panel of people from all sides of the DCB world. So yeah, ready to get stuck in.
Fantastic. Ross, take it away. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, as James was saying, you know, if there's two themes that have come up today, is that there is a lot of opportunity in DCB. It's a growing market at the moment. It's on the rise, but also with that comes a lot of challenge. In crisis comes opportunity at the same time. So first off, to kind of set the scene, I'm going to introduce Louise Ford, who's going to give a presentation. Hi, Louise.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Pleased to be here. And
excellent. Good to have you.
Thanks to everyone for dialing in on such a hot day. Hopefully no one's melted yet.
Yeah, I'm in Ireland right now. It's only 29 degrees, but I'm still sweating. So struggling with that. But yeah, it's great to have everyone. So do you want to give your brief history of yourself and DCB and what you do at Empello?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Louise. I've been in the mobile payments industry, mostly working on the aggregator side for 20 years now. Going all the way back to the days when Vodafone first launched PSMS in the UK. So it's a way back. I'm a bit of a dinosaur. Currently working at Empello as managing director, and we provide cybersecurity solutions to combat fraud in the DCB market and VAS industry, and also market monitoring and advertising monitoring solutions. So, you know, we're passionate about creating that level playing field, that safe ecosystem that mobile payments and direct carrier billing can thrive in.
Cool.
So that's me. I think we can bring up the slides. I just put together a few things here to kick the debate off and put some context around. As you said, you know, there's a huge opportunity out there for direct carrier billing. If you look at, you know, the global context, global m-commerce is predicted to hit 620 billion by 2024, according to Insider Intelligence. And that's 42.9% of all e-commerce sales, and it's growing 15% year on year. You know, in context of that, Juniper estimated direct carrier billing was worth 55 million in 2022, and that's going to grow to 74 billion by 2026. And the context of that is 49% of that is coming out of Asia, and 50% of that is on digital goods. So DCB is currently quite a small slice of a very large m-commerce pie right now. And it's kind of skewed to certain geographic regions where it's really thriving, such as Asia. And it's certainly skewed towards digital goods. So good context to kick off with. Huge opportunity. Go to the next slide. Wonderful. It's a very competitive landscape out there. We've got 2 billion people globally using various types of mobile payments, and that's estimated to rise to 4.8 billion by 2025, according to Bloomberg. So we're looking at doubling the amount of users in the next 3 years, really, more than 50% of the global population. But DCB kind of sits in a very competitive landscape. You'll recognize those brands up there, Google Pay, Apple Pay, Venmo, which is very popular in the US, Paytm, which is very popular in India, Alipay, Samsung. They're just a few. They're the only ones I could fit on the slide. So, in terms of DCB, poor old DCB, if we were to talk about how you pay for goods and services on your mobile phone and ask consumers if they were using DCB, they wouldn't know what we were talking about outside of this forum. Whereas if you asked if you were using PayPal or Google Pay, people would know exactly what you meant. So poor old DCB, it's not a recognizable global brand. It doesn't have a logo. And, I think one of its challenges is it's not very sexy and no one knows exactly what it is. I think as an industry, we need to be quite clear on what is it we're actually selling. We're not really selling DCB. We're selling the ability to buy something through your carrier phone bill. And then the last slide up is really just to look at, I think, these are ongoing challenges, but on the flip side, there are also critical success factors as well. These are the factors that if we can get them right, then, it will help make DCB a success. So we have an interplay of regulatory frameworks that impact the success of DCB. Both telco legislation and financial services legislation impacts DCB, particularly in many markets on the types of services we can sell or bill for DCB, and that's why we see the skew towards digital services. We've got the lack of personality and global consumer recognition that we've alluded to in the last slide, and that impacts consumer trust. We've potentially got multiple integrations by carrier and country as well. So not a single global API like, for example, PayPal or Google Pay. So from a merchant perspective, it can be quite daunting to roll out DCB globally. We have difficult revenue shares to contend with and sometimes bad debt provisions that we don't have on some of the competitor mobile billing solutions. We have some horrible user journeys out there versus some of the NFC and QR code activation type mobile payments that we see. And then we have that interesting, relationship between, whose customer is it anyway? Telcos are not just a payment gateway. They also provide core telephony services to the consumers that are using DCB. So there's a joint customer ownership between the telco and the merchant. So those are some of the areas that I think are interesting. They're challenges, but they're also critical success factors in making DCB a success.
Great. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of different directions we could go in this call. Unfortunately, we only have 45 minutes, so better introduce everyone and get started. So first, I'll introduce Toby Padgham from MCP. I hope I said your name right. I thought it was Padgham, and then I heard James earlier say Padgham. So
it's one of the rare instances someone gets it right, Ross.
Great. Do you want to tell us about you at MCP Insight?
Yeah, I'm a director and founder of MCP Insights. It's a very similar company to Louise's. We provide compliance solutions, market intelligence, and anti-fraud systems to mobile operators around the world and the value chain.
Perfect. Great. And next up, we have Peter Garside.
Hi, yeah, I work for EE. I've been with EE for around 5 years, and I'm responsible for the charge to bill and digital ID department. The charge to bill element is obviously the DCP, includes DCP, premium SMS, and voice shortcodes.
Yeah, and obviously BT is one of the bigger operators in the UK, just in case anyone doesn't know. And then next up is Amelia Newsom-Davis.
Hello, so I'm work for Orange France. We're the leading operator in France, for anyone who doesn't know us. I'm in charge of operator means of payment, digital ID, and also business messaging.
Cool. And then Anzelle Robertson, I know you introduced yourself yesterday, but just in case anyone doesn't know.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Ross. Thanks. I'm Anzelle Robertson. I'm with Sam Media. We're a digital content provider. Anything ranging from digital AR, VR streaming services, educational services, which we monetize globally via either direct carrier billing, M-wallets, or credit cards. Personally, I look after business development for the region of Africa.
Perfect. And then finally, we have Kev Dawson. Going to be like a broken record. You just introduced yourself, but give us one more introduction.
Yeah, Kev Dawson. I'm at PM Connect. I'm a group CEO. PM Connect, we bridge brands into mobile carriers. We try to bridge the chasm that many of them often fall down in trying to monetize through mobile their brands and their brand products and services. So that's the sticky bit of glue that we try to do well and do all the heavy lifting in the meantime.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate you keep the intros brief. We're definitely going to run over in this call. I have a feeling. So let's just get stuck in. So one of the things that Louise touched on, Toby, I'd like to kick this to you, is that obviously I don't think it's unfair to say the consumer is unaware about DCB. I think in telecoms in general, not just DCB, we have these phrases for things and the consumer doesn't know, but we fixate on them so much. And sometimes we can't even agree on the nomenclature. So what do you think is the best way to promote DCB to the average consumer? Should we even call it DCB? Should we just say it's a neat way to pay? You know, what do you think?
Well, we've tried different brands in different countries, such as Pay for It in the UK, and they tend to fold, probably because it depends what the level of maturity of the marketplace is. But if you're generating a lot of complaints, and it's easy then to identify with the brand rather than like a card payment, mobile payments, but you actually attach a brand to the payment option, such as Pay for It, then it's it can be quite damaging when it's spread across chat forums what the ills of that brand are, or the issues in the industry. So I think it's not so much promotion of the name. It sits very much alongside all the other payment methods as a great alternative and has very, useful assets such as its ubiquity through the mobile phone, but also the ease of payment and low friction. But I think we need to split it into two. We need to look at what industry can do together to promote, and that can come through trade bodies like the initiatives that MEF are driving around anti-fraud or the growth initiatives and customer care. But also, if we're going to take on the mobile operators and industry and their partners need to really identify what they want to do. And I think, there is a big middle ground opportunity, which all the main brands, sports brands, etc., parking, ticketing, etc. If we can target those, join up all the mobile operators and say, we want to beat PayPal, then we've got to look through and start to promote, is it industry meetups? I think BT did a very good recent trade event with parking, ticketing, transport at the Transport Museum in London. So look at trade body events, look at the individual events themselves and how mobile operators can drive that within their industry partners, and look at consumer awareness themselves. Going onto websites of mobile operators, you've got to be able to signpost how the consumer can get good customer care. What is DCB, FAQs on the website, the standard fare that we've all talked about in other sessions. And if they get lost in a payment flow, it's generally you reroute them. If they get error codes coming through when they try and bill, reroute them to the right point, send out a decent message, review how you message to the customer, etc., and optimize that flow for that user. So you're not generating complaints. Yeah.
Do you agree, Peter, with that as a representing an operator, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. I think that us at EEBT, we are investing in this space. And we're not just investing in technology; we're also investing in informing our customers about DCB services. But I think one of the most important ways to communicate to customers is not by a mobile operator putting an advert out. It's actually customers using the services on a day-to-day basis, and that's the reason why we did the transport event that Toby just talked about. We are really trying hard to get it out to the mass market not just on a weekly basis using direct carrier billing, but actually using it daily. And we think that transport is a great way to do that. So it is about, the business of transport, but it's also about getting it out there, getting people used to using carrier billing and kind of normalizing it. I think there is also an argument and that people don't realize they're using it when they are using it. So when you're voting on TV or you're donating to charity or you're paying for something on your Sony PlayStation, you may not realize that is actually carrier billing. So I think, there is a question about branding, and that's probably something that we've all got to get better at is that branding. Yep. But getting it out to the masses, getting mass market products, not just, gaming is obviously a huge market, but, like everyday products, I think there's an opportunity there to really promote the service.
Yeah. No, and I think you touched on a very good point there. I'd like to kick this to Amelia. Awareness is only part of the battle, really, because there's also the issue of trust. Consumers they lack trust and they fear a lot of unknown payment systems. So Amelia, how have you found helping consumers understand that DCB is trustworthy and efficient? Or
actually, it's an interesting question, because we did an NPS study last year, and we do it every year on carrier billing. And interestingly, one of the answers that our customers gave us was that they really like the role of the operator in DCB. That's one of the key issues for them. So I think that making sure that the operator can actually be seen, the role of the operator is clear within the payment flow. It's something that's important. They like the fact that we're there, that they can call us as well if something goes wrong. So that the trust and the role of the operator as a trustworthy third party, particularly with the proliferation of all these new means of payment. We all know PayPal and we all know credit card, but there are lots of new means of payment, don't necessarily know who they are, what they are, if they work very well. So I think there's a real role for the operator there to take back perhaps a bit of the ground that we've given earlier on.
Yeah, fair. And as well, how is the kind of user journey or user experience? Maybe I could point this to Anzelle. How have you found the user journey or user experience affecting DCB adoption? What kind of role has that to play?
Yeah, sure. I think Amelia raises an important part when she speaks about the role that operators play in creating trust. So what we found is, as a marketeer and a provider of digital entertainment services, we typically know once when we are marketing our product on the internet, on Google, we know by the time the consumer comes to the first or starts initiating the payment process, we know that they are, for example, an Orange consumer, or Orange subscriber, or a BT subscriber, or a Vodacom or MTN subscriber. We know that by that point. We have the technical ability to know that. And where it's allowed and where we've agreed that with our carrier partners, we actually like to show the carrier logo next to that payment option. So that's one thing, because we have seen that improve conversion rate, because there definitely is a trust element between the carrier and the ultimate subscriber. Secondly, I think someone else mentioned the point that often consumers don't know that they're purchasing something via DCB, even though they are, because historically, if we look at the early days of the VAS industry, it used to indeed be very ad hoc, very impulse-based purchases, whereas we're now seeing a trend to merchants of digital content actually using what we call the checkout system or the shopping cart system, the same way you would have for physical goods, where the consumer is roaming in our digital marketplace. They, from there, decide, I want streaming to this, or I want this piece of content, or I want this game. It's added into a cart, which of course means that the consumer has already committed to wanting to purchase those things and show that interest. And in the cart, in the checkout procedure, we like to offer DCB alongside other methods like M-Pesa in sub-Saharan Africa, like Momo in Ghana, and credit cards, of course, in other developed markets where that's an option. And I think that's a good way to try and or it's definitely shown an increase in the uptake of DCB. Of course, there's a lot to be said about margins if you're offering these payment methods side by side, but at the end of the day, offering it next to these brands that Louise touched on earlier that are already well known immediately implies that as it should be, that it is trustworthy and that a consumer can use it safely.
Yeah. What do you think we can learn from sort of brands like that, Anzelle? You know, sort of the sort of brands that you mentioned. What can DCB extract from that?
I think looking at the brands that I deal with my day-to-day work, specifically being M-Pesa and Momo, is that they are indeed very well branded. Of course, they're group level based, so you wouldn't have Vodacom South Africa offering one form of DCB with one flow, and then Vodafone Ghana, even though they're owned by the same subsidiary at the top, offering a different one. I think that's a big thing to learn, is at least at group level. Of course, if we want to think about a global API for DCB, then I think that's very far down the road, unfortunately. But certainly at these carrier opco levels, I think we can look at branding. And I think, again, just uptake. It's just a matter of numbers. And I think word of mouth, certainly in the developing markets, plays a big role, simply by someone going, hey, I just paid for my streaming service via M-Pesa. It's so easy, whatever. And to ultimately get that going for DCB as well.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. I want to go to Kev because he hasn't spoken yet. He looks like he's itching to talk. So I'll ask you about anti-fraud. How important is anti-fraud to DCB? How prevalent is fraud in your experience as a merchant?
Well, it's a payment mechanic, so payments has fraud. Let's not hide that fact. If there's an opportunity for somebody to make money and they can do that fraudulently, then they will attract an aspect of market to do that. And that's why we have the Empellos, that's why we have the MCPs of this world, to provide and develop the platforms to address that. So it is absolutely has been prevalent, and it continues to be. I guess the thing is that we can't rest on our laurels, and we have to have the technology deployments so we can maintain and manage that. And some of the technology now is outstanding. I mean, it's blocking them at the point. It's not a repercussion. We're not following up activities after they've happened. We're blocking them at source now. The trend tracking is seeing the transactional behaviours and blocking them at the point of source, so the transaction's not even happening. So it really is quite a significant move forward. And around payments generally and carrier billing, I mean, this is really how we can help go ahead and make it a success. But I do think sometimes we have to take a step back and reflect on what I think is, whilst you would argue it's probably not a mainstream payment mechanic, we are very quickly shaping up to becoming exactly that. I mean, the numbers now, I think, Louise, you talked about 2026, I think it was a $74 billion forecast. In 2019, Juniper told us consumer spend was $33 billion on carrier billing. This year it's forecast at $55 billion. So we are a significant payment player already. We shouldn't lose sight of that. And with the maturity and the security and the scalability of the infrastructure that's now getting built, we're falling in line with the mainstream payment mechanics. So I think it is, whilst we've been around for 20 plus years, we've only really grown up about this in more recent years, certainly the last 5 to 10 years. We've actually got the infrastructure right, we've got the regulation right, we've got the framework right, and we've got the technology layers right, both in the payment mechanic itself and in the marketing activities as well. So I think we're reaching a tipping point where we'll start to see the brand slide. And at PMC, that's what we've been doing, is really targeting to brands, because the engagement with these brands now is so much more relevant than it ever has been before. We were the almost dark medium before that they didn't quite like or trust. They saw the upside, some very quick acquisition tools there, and we've maybe had to temper some of those down with framework agreements and regulation. But what that really gives us is a mainstay play for payments. So I'm actually, ironically, very happy with some of the frameworks that have come into place, because it really gives us a platform now to leverage and globalize these things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Louise, do you want to reply to that, or you seem to agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, having anti-fraud solutions in place is a hygiene factor, really, when it comes to direct carrier billing and mobile payments in general. I guess one of the things that sort of resonated with me during that debate was we talk about omni-channel a lot in the messaging world, but not so much in the payments world. So, is this a case of omni-pay where, we accept that there's a range of different payment mechanisms and that, DCB plays its role in that omni-pay strategy? Is there a role for MPaaS companies in the place of CPaaS companies that provide those kind of solutions where we're looking at a range of different payment mechanisms available to the consumer and presenting the right one at the right time in the right situation?
Yep. Absolutely. Great. All right. So I want to move over. I know we're covering a lot of subjects, but this is quite a broad talk, so we can jump around a little bit. So I want to talk about regulation. It's always complicated, it's slow, and telecoms is regulated, banking is regulated, and it's also different in every country. So Toby, do you think it's causing friction in the adoption of DCB? What do you think?
It has. I mean, there are prime examples, where too heavy. Well, regulation tends to be heavy, where industry is new and it's taken off like a rocket and caused a lot of consumer problems that comes along with fast revenue growth. And you see the backlash on that, where you'd have the USA, the Federal Trade Commission, coming in and shutting down the US market. It's only recently opened up again with the main channels like Netflix or Spotify or the big brands, and it's slowly opening up a bit more. And it takes a long time to actually, once it's been boom and bust, to actually return to an environment where the market can start to grow. Mobile operators are accepting that they can take on, open up that billing mechanic again to their customer base. So I think putting in place regulation is fine, but at the macro level with the Ofcoms and the traditional telco regulators, and then at the right-hand side, you've got the marketing regulators, there's nothing really in between. And you need either self-regulation through trade bodies coming together or the mobile operators coming together to put in place regulation, or you have a specific regulator in play that looks at this particular industry. And I think we're seeing a maturing. I think the days of a specific independent regulator, for example, the Payment Services Authority, that is a subset of Ofcom, they're being subsumed back into Ofcom. I think in European markets where it's all quite mature, mobile operators got their codes of practice. They've worked with industry to put in place best practices. They're now quite refined when it comes to the payment flow. I don't think we're getting many click flows anymore in Europe. It's moved to a more OTP flow, hopefully using HE. But on the flip side, working with industry to say, all right, if you keep putting tick boxes across a payment flow, you're probably going to go the other way and shut down a market that you're trying to open up. So don't be too conservative. So I think it's about collaboration in how you get the right framework for regulation. Yeah.
Do you think, so you think it's getting better, I guess, at the very least?
I think it's improving. I think you've still got the young markets and, where there's young markets and mobile operators, which are still driven by revenue targets. There are issues because maybe implementing and asserting those codes of practice aren't as good as they can be in more mature markets, where the mobile operators themselves may be incentivized by a split of revenue and lower complaints. And I think then their need to apply that and safeguard their brand is good. So it is getting better. And I think that maturing of the marketplaces and opening up to bigger brands will see us good improving situation all around the world.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. All right, so again, we're jumping around a little bit, but I want to kind of strip it back to basics. Let's talk to Amelia. Why should a customer use DCB over, say, credit cards or vouchers? What are the actual benefits? Maybe, we can kind of emphasize those points and actually, be more successful moving forward.
Oh, good question. I think one of them was trust in the operator, as I mentioned before. The other is that actually the payment flow, when it's well done, is pretty good. And I saw what Louise was mentioning. Some of the flows are terrible. I think we're clearing out a lot of those terrible flows. We've now got some really good ones that once you've just got the one-time password to put in, and then you can go through a one-click payment process. It's quick and easy. When the flow is good, and much easier than quite a lot of the flows that we have, even from OTT payment providers, and certainly the two-factor authentication, which we have here in France, in Europe now, whereby you have to go into your banking app and approve all credit card payments. Actually quite a long and cumbersome process, particularly if you haven't got good network coverage. It often doesn't work. So it actually can be an advantage going through carrier billing as well. So I think those are probably the two reasons. A third reason that we wouldn't necessarily push to our customers, but we know from our customer research that they really like the fact that they have to pay the bill 30 days later, and so it's like a sort of mini credit option that they get, and that's something that's really appreciated by a lot of customers as well.
Yeah. Have you found that younger people, especially, have kind of enjoyed that last point, or what have you seen?
We haven't in particularly, it's not weighted towards one or the other for the time being. So at the moment, we just know that customers, they like to be able to use that as like a little bit of extra cash, so they can recharge their bank account. And also we do allow them to determine how much they want to spend every month. It was quite a hard choice for us because obviously bringing down the spending ceiling can have an impact on our revenues, but it's something that the customers really like. So if they want to just say, right, I only want to spend £20 a month, they can do that, or they can go right up to the maximum, which in France is 300 per month, 300 euros.
Yeah. So, okay, maybe we could do a bit of a round robin now. I think James sort of asked this question a couple of times during this panel or during this whole day, but it's kind of a good question, I think, to have. If there's something that could happen in the DCB world, if you could wave a magic wand and have something happen for DCB in the next 2 or 3 years, what would you like to see? So maybe we could start with Peter. We haven't heard from him in a while.
I think we've touched on a few of these points, but I think that I think it's okay to have a payment, a mobile operator DCB as a choice of payments. I think that's fine. I think that's kind of like the space we want to be. So you've got PayPal, you've got credit card, maybe you've got Apple Pay, you've got Google Pay. I think us being alongside that as a normal activity, that's kind of like where we want to get to. I think that different people want to use different payment methods, and that's just a fact. So we know that when merchants add DCB to their payment choice, more customers join that merchant, and more customers pay for goods and services from that merchant. So I would like to see it as a kind of normal thing that you see, and not a kind of, oh yeah, I can see DCB on this particular merchant. It should be just a normal everyday activity and everyday thing that you see. So people should know about, obviously, Apple Pay, Google Pay, credit card, but they should also know about mobile operator billing as well, or DCB.
Yeah, just normality for DCB. I agree. Yeah. Louise, what do you think?
Well, I think the key thing is the identity of direct carrier billing, and getting consumers to know and understand it and use it and trust it alongside competitive payment mechanisms. As Amelia said, flows are different in different countries, so no point in waving a magic wand over those. Regulatory frameworks are different in different countries. So I think the work that bodies do and that bodies like MEF do in terms of raising awareness. Anzelle alluded to the fact that we can develop, certain groups of telcos can develop a single offering and a single identity and put their brand behind the billing. I think that's very important. It's establishing that identity, that personality. Carriers putting the brand behind their payment gateway solutions would be critical. Yeah.
And Anzelle, the same thing to you. If there's any sort of key landmarks that DCB realistically can reach in the next 2 or 3 years, what would be your ideal?
Yeah, sure. So I think just starting by looking at some of the data that Louise already started to quote, saying revenues have increased this much and it's projected to increase even more. If I can look at some of the markets that I work in and that we're working in Africa. The revenues increase, but the number of subscribers signing up to our services per day decrease. And why is that? It's because ourselves and other merchants like ourselves are investing more and more in doing very targeted advertising, targeting who we're showing our content offering to in the first place, and making sure when the time the payment step comes around that we already 90% sure that this is someone that's into gaming, or this is someone that's looking for a educational product, or whatever the case may be. So what that has as an effect is these instances again pertaining to the past where I mean, realistically, I'm not aware of any service or product or retailer in the world that has 30,000 new subscribers per day. I mean, that's just, so what I would like to see more of, if I can wave a magic wand, was in more industries to see more of a drive and more pressure from the industry bodies and the regulators on those who follow a different approach, but more of this drive on targeted advertising leading to better KPIs, longer lifespan. Of course, better product offerings need to drive that as well. It needs to come from somewhere, and bringing the volumes down, but the revenue up, and creating that a good reputation for DCB by doing so.
Okay, same to you, Amelia.
What would I like to see? I think I'd like to see carrier billing DCB adopted by some of the mainstream PSPs. I think one of the issues that we have, and why we are a bit on one side, is it tends to be something that's not viewed as a mainstream payment solution by most digital merchants. So certainly the fact that Netflix and Spotify and others are moving forward is good news for us, but the fact that we're not up there with the others and presented, I think someone mentioned the fact that we need to be sort of normalized in a marketplace like other means of payment. Until that happens, and until we get some of the big PSPs on board, or we get some of the aggregators that you manage to have a real sort of PSP relationship and to integrate with the biggest brands, then I think we're always going to be a little bit on one side, and we're going to struggle to be a mainstream means of payment.
Yeah. And Kevin?
Well, I was trying to think of something different to everybody else.
Yeah, I think I can throw you a new one if you want.
I think this is quite achievable, actually. It's really for the ecosystem to kind of redress some of the preconceptions, and really if we can embrace, some of the technology benefits and layers that we have now with, I'm not plugging them because I don't work for them, but the Empellos, the MCPs, the Arenas of this world now, they've got some fantastic technology stacks, and it's audible to such a granular level now. I mean, every flow and condition, if it's deployed, can be tracked and traced, and then often can be blocked before a transaction even occurs. So what would be perfect for me would be that we could mitigate away from the regulatory mindset of more regulation, more steps, more processes to offset the challenge that we're faced by unscrupulous players in the marketplace, and actually adopting and embracing the technology layer to use those intelligent algorithm decisions so we can build credible businesses, and those that do different are seen, identified and turned off. So for me, I think it's actually quite realistic. I don't think it's a magic wand, but it does take a whole set change of mind and what we've been used to doing for the last 20 years in my case. So maybe a big ask, but I don't think it's impossible.
Maybe we'll see. And I think that just leaves Toby, if I'm not correct.
Yeah, I can't believe maybe it's the elephant in the room. I can't believe nobody's really said higher payouts. But it's, for me, I think that's fairly critical. Industry has to to invest in good products. Advertising expensive. If you're competing with mainstream payment mechanics, I think you need high payouts. If you're going into a marketplace where you're paying out 50% as a mobile operator, it probably has the opposite effect of the merchants having to drive fast traffic, blind traffic, not really knowing what they're getting, and you get a lot of complaints on the flip side. And that if you break it into 3 addressable layers as an industry strategy, you've got the big app stores and the Netflixes at the top, but they're pretty much serviced by Boku Bango plugged into the mobile operators, and the growth of that is going to come from those app stores opening up new markets. In the bottom side, where you've got traditional services, as Anzelle said, you are starting to get a merger of mobile. DCB is an alternative payment alongside the Empellos and other payment mechanics, which is good, and that market will grow. But the middle is where the opportunity is, and that has to be 88-90% payouts, where you can attract in the transport companies, parking, big charities, they need high payouts, etc. Dating, so they've got a good alternative to the card payments.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I think is that the industry should almost develop sort of like a unified brand, like the Wi-Fi logo. You know, I feel like something that we could all, I don't know if that's a good idea, or maybe it's different by individual markets and companies, but you know, anyway. So I think we're coming up to the end now. But we can leave it with we can do like an individual soundbite, about 30 seconds from each of you, if that sounds good. Yeah, perfect. So we'll go over to Louise again.
An individual soundbite. Gosh, that's
30 seconds to leave DCB. Lessons learned and success.
DCB, I've been working in it for 20 years and in mobile payments, and I would love to see DCB payments go into mainstream sectors and be successful in parking, ticketing, and not just being used for digital services. That would be my dream, and that's what I've been striving for 20 years. So if this year is the year that it goes, or the decade, I'll be very happy.
Yeah. Peter?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny you say that, Louise, because that's our focus as well. I mean, we're really now pushing the transport sector, the parking sector. We're hoping that we will get some really good traction with that in the UK market. We're hoping that that will make it a more of a mainstream product. We keep investing in customer care, in our technology. We've got all the building blocks in place with regulation as well. So I think we're in a great position, and hopefully this is the launch pad to get carrier billing in the transport industry.
Yeah. Kev?
I'm just hoping we continue to see the emergence of the new brands, the premium content, the marquee brandings into the space. And I think we've started to build a framework globally, but certainly in Western Europe, I see clear evidence of frameworks, guidelines, and infrastructure support that makes that feasible now. So I think the ball is back in our court now. It's for us to now really take that. I think we need to talk less about the payment mechanic itself per se, but if we talk about the wider mobile ecosystem, how we can take them from first point of marketing and acquisition and take them through the full 360 life cycle in managing them and drive real sustainability and value to customer that's sustainable and ARPUs that we can all sustainably put a number to and a period of time to. I think we're getting there. I really do think we're getting there. And that I think the drive is the content drive and then having the right distribution way to deliver that. And the mobile carriers give us that opportunity. It's all about payments. We all have to make a margin. We all want to make more money. But if we get the framework right, then those things naturally take their own course. And the right brands drive the right conditions typically.
Yeah. Anzelle?
Yeah, so one thing, soundbite, I think what we're missing, because we spoke a lot about DCB being used for digital content on the one side and not so much for physical goods on the other. I definitely think and firmly believe and know from experience that there's something in between, and that is actually adding physical goods or a tangible reward to your digital content offering. Thinking, for example, if I've been subscribed or I've been a member of a virtual reality streaming service for 1 month, I get a cardboard headset in the post. It just makes carrier billing, it just makes DCB a bit more tangible for the consumer. It makes the digital content a bit more tangible for the consumer. It definitely increases customer life span, and I think that's an untapped part of the market with untapped potential. Certainly, when we combine that with the power of carrier branding in their retail shops.
Absolutely, Amelia. Closing remarks.
Yeah. I'll say with my 3 priorities, which are push, promote, and protect. So push into new markets, like I heard Peter saying. We've already been working in transport ticketing for quite some time. We just launched a ticketing offer, which is for other forms of ticketing, not just transport. And in transport, we have 100% growth for the last 3 or 4 years now. We cover for example, the whole bus network in the Paris region. So that's great. I'd say promote. We haven't done enough of it in the past, and it's difficult for mobile operators because we have to compete with all the hundreds of other offers and the subscription packages and everything that the mobile operator has. But promote as much as you can, and leverage your partners to do that for you as well. And protect. Yes, it's important to protect your customers. So we have anti-fraud solutions in place. And we've also, I think, eased up quite a lot of the customer care as well. We trust our customers. If a customer rings up and says that he made a purchase by mistake, then we make sure that he or she is refunded without any questions asked first time round. So I think those three things are probably key to making a success.
Perfect. And then Toby, I believe you're last.
Yeah, I'll do one for the trade body then, because I think collaboration. I think the industry has been quite very fragmented. Hundreds of operators everywhere, working in quite a separate way. Sometimes I think it's improved a lot, but I think the real opportunity for this is massive. The opportunity, just as a small piece of the pie that Amelia is talking about in transport and ticketing, could be really, really big. So working together to learn from case studies, drive the initiatives together, joining up by trade bodies, you can learn so much.
Perfect. Yeah, I totally agree. As I'll use that to plug our working group. Most of the people here are involved with the MEF DCB for Growth working group, which the next one I believe is on the 25th of July. So if you want to come to that, reach out to me or James at ross@mobileecosystemforum.com or james@mobileecosystemforum.com. This is a great panel. I love the enthusiasm of everyone. So maybe we can come back in a year and we'll see if any of our predictions or hopes have come true. I'd love to have you guys back for the next digital transformation, but I think that's it for us here. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.